Well, I think the start of that is, of course, getting IT right. It's about improving IT in New Zealand. What we've discovered through the several years of research we've done and the point where we've come to now is that when you start a piece of work in IT, it's very important that the setup pieces of work are done well and done properly. Too often people just start their piece of work without that, if you like, due diligence. So the key parts of this due diligence, one of them is better business cases. And that really starts to set the scene for any project that has come through a business to be turned into a project or piece of work. And it looks at the very high level and outset pieces that need to be done, like who's going to own this project? Has it been prioritised? Has it been prioritised to the strategic plan? Without these sort of things, the project or a piece of work is going to start off on the wrong foot. So to me, it's an absolute fundamental. So there you go.
So PMI, Project Management Institute, is an international organisation. It's the world's largest project management volunteer-led organisation, representing over 650,000 members and credential holders worldwide. In New Zealand, we've got about 3,500 members and credential holders, so it's quite a sizable organisation representing the project management industry and really geared at raising project management standards and professionalism within project management. Well, a better business case is a fundamental process at the very start of projects, and project managers learn lots of techniques and apply these techniques very comprehensively. But if we haven't got the foundations right, then the rest is a waste of time. If you haven't got the foundations right, then you can build a house, but it's the wrong house or it's in the wrong place. So we need to get the foundations right. And better business case is a technique that provides that opportunity to reduce the level of risk, if you like, at the start of a project. Thereafter, standard project management techniques kick in, but it's important to get it right at the very start.
It's vitally important, particularly from a project management perspective where I come from. I think when we look at project management track record, we look at success in terms of delivering on time, to cost, to quality and those kind of things. And then we say it's about delivering to good stakeholder outcomes. So that's all very good for the actual delivery stage, but you've got to get the right project in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So having the right business case is about being effective with the right project. And of course that's absolutely vital. That's where we start from, isn't it?
Thanks for coming along this evening. Great turnout. Technology right here, so bear with me. So welcome, my name is Carl Robertson, I'm the Vice President of the Project Management Institute of New Zealand, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you tonight, and I'm delighted to see so many, not old faces, familiar faces, but also it's delighted to see so many new faces, so welcome. And just quick summary, we're going to go through the agenda quite quickly because we want to get to the main topic, which is Rodney, and we'll be up very soon. So just for people who are new to PMI, I'll just give you an introduction about PMI and who we are. Mention our conference is coming up, mention our study groups, then we'll on to the main business, and Scott and Monetary Scott, who can introduce Rodney. So, for those who are not familiar with PMI, Project Management Institute of New Zealand is established in 1970. It's the world's largest volunteer-led project management organisation. 650,000 plus members and credential holders worldwide, representing the project management community and project management profession. It undertakes a lot of research. It's based everywhere now, with 247 chapters around the world. And it's great to see PMI members from overseas coming here, because PMI members are welcome at any chapter meeting. It's got an education arm which is very active at the moment, and it's a very strong family of recognised credentials, which is really relevant and very important when building a better business case. Project Management Institute of New Zealand, for those who are not familiar with Project Management Institute of New Zealand, We have 3,500 members and credential holders around the country, which is quite substantial. PMI New Zealand, PMINZ, has got 3 main branches. In the northern branch, which is centred around Auckland, central branch centred around Wellington, and the South Island centred around Christchurch. Each branch runs regular monthly meetings, and hopefully we get some interesting topics, and we always have some wonderful experiences. There's a number of sub-branches that we recently started, and that's really to engage with project managers who are perhaps not among the main centres, but who need to network, need to learn, want to develop their skills, want to get opportunities for gaining PMI credentials. So that's why we're running study branches, or sub-branches. We also run an annual conference, which will be in Auckland this year, but I'll explain that. We run a mentoring scheme, which has proved very effective. We run it nationally, so if anybody wants to participate in mentoring, we run study groups for people to gain PMI credentials, like project management professional, or CAPM credentials, which are very popular, and we run a range of seminars. We are the voice, and we seek to be the voice of project management in New Zealand and worldwide, and we need to grow the profession, to grow the professionalism of the profession and the importance of the profession. There was one survey that was done recently identified that 20% of the world's GDP is spent on projects, which is staggering. So $1 out of every 5 is spent on projects. It's an important industry. It's an important profession. It's important we get it right. So getting it right is playing their part. PMI is playing our part. And of course, Better Business Case is playing its part. So they all fit together to really raise the profession, raise the industry, and produce good outcomes. PMI New Zealand, as the international organisation, is volunteer-driven. We have a number of volunteers who have done an outstanding job and continue to do an outstanding job, and I'm frequently blown away by that. And I'm delighted that we've been able to encourage Tatiana Picaraga to take on the role of Auckland coordinator, and Tatiana will be fronting up for the future meetings this year. So thank you, Tatiana, and thanks to everyone else. Whenever there's a change in the year, there are changes in roles and so on, and some people need to step back because of personal work commitments. So there are always new opportunities for new volunteers. So if you want to join a thriving team, building a project management industry with a project management professional within New Zealand, get in touch with myself, with Tatiana, or with any of the other members of PMI, and we'll make sure that you're fully occupied and making a huge difference. So good things happen when you become involved with PMI New Zealand. And it really is, our focus has shifted a little bit this year for those PMI New Zealand members. In the past, we've focused very much on the members, and we continue to do that. And it's really important to provide growth in the professionalism of members, and provide opportunities for members to learn new skills, be a better business case or whatever, to learn new techniques, to network, and so on. But we've also recognised that there's a wider profession that we need to really engage with. People in the project management sector, people in industry, people in government sector who perhaps are not aware of the importance that project managers play within their organisations. So I really encourage you to make sure your CEOs are aware of the role of project managers, and we'll be working with you to raise that. So we'll be undertaking a number of executive engagements during this year, really raising the standard for the project management profession. So I mentioned that we have got the conference this year in Auckland. I'm particularly excited by this because it's going to be our best conference ever. And last year was pretty good, so it's a high standard. It's going to be at the Rendezvous, which is just on Mail Drive, from the 10th to the 12th of September. So get that in your diaries, get it in your calendars, put in a leave request, or ask your manager for funding approval. Now, 10th to 12th, it's going to be quite an exceptional experience. We're just finalising the speakers right now, and details of that will be released quite soon. So now I'll go to the next page. you go, old-fashioned way. In terms of study groups, I've had a lot of requests about what's happening in study groups. Two reasons for that. One of them is, again, for PMI members, you'll probably be aware that project management body of knowledge is shifting from version 4 or to edition 5, and the exams for edition 5 start in August. So for those who have been studying for edition 4 and you haven't yet sat your exams, do it before the 31st of July, otherwise you can't do it anymore. So really get in there now and book your time to sit your exams. If you're doing CAPM exams, then it's the 30th of June, just to confuse things. We've got a number of study groups that are now kicking off this month. Details of the study groups are available on the website or the PMI New Zealand website. But if you've got any questions, you can speak with Roger, the Professional Development Coordinator, and Rajneesh, who's the Study Group Coordinator, or Tatiana or myself. But first point, go and have a look at the website. If you've got any questions, let us know. Right, so what I'll do is I'll bypass Rodney for a second, excuse me, and I'll introduce Scott. Scott, who many of you will have met, because Scott came to speak on International Project Management Day in this theatre room on the 31st the 1st of November on the subject of the future of the project management profession. So I'm very delighted that Getting It Right and PMI New Zealand are collaborating on bringing these techniques here. So Scott.
Thank you very much. Has anyone seen a project file? Really? One person? I've got some years under my belt, and I think that the number's probably higher. Can I just ask again, has anyone seen a project file?
Could you rephrase it? How that some projects fail?
Well, yeah, has anyone seen a project succeed? Look, I think there is overwhelming evidence that projects don't always go quite as we plan them to, and that there are the odd failure, and there's the odd one that even makes it into spruce. I guess from me personally, what I have seen is I've been a project manager in practice, and I guess I was always interested that in my cold face where I was sitting that it seemed like my projects weren't working very well. But I've taken a new role about 8 years ago, and I walked into recruitment. And what it's showing me is a view across that. It shows me I can go in and talk to clients, I can talk to candidates, for some of which you're a big guy. And you have said to me, you and the rest of not only Auckland, but the world, I must say, have said, hey, look, there's a problem there. And the size of it is the thing that's staggering. And it's a real problem. We've done metrics on it. We're talking billions of dollars just in New Zealand, let alone the numbers you're mentioning, you know, the size of the bigger project. So it's a real problem. So I endeavoured and got Getting IT up and running. And what it did is really went around and asked people like yourselves, why? What's going on? Why are you project managers cocking it up? Why are you doing that? And your response was, we're not. And I think that a lot of the ground methodologies are probably fairly sound. The big question, are you allowed to do them? Are you enabled to do them? Do your bosses let you do them? Or do you get squeezed on things like price and scope and time and all those good things, and then you have to compromise? So this is the thing, right? So I think that therefore some of the answer, or the majority of the answer, lies in the setting up the environment that a project sits in. And I guess that's why I got very excited about what Rodney had to tell me about better business cases. I see better business cases, or business cases, as an absolutely fundamental and a really cool tool for you guys to use. If you have a really sound business case, then you're going to set yourself up a lot better to get going. Conversely, if you don't, and you haven't thought through those items, you're going to be in a lot worse spot. Your risks are going to increase. All right? There's other elements too. I think project prioritisation is another. I think that there's sort of philosophical and maturity type ideas that sit around it. But what we're all doing as professionals is just looking at our little piece, the project management, the business analyst, the test developer, the service management guy. And yeah, we're doing those but trying, but it's the environment we're sitting in, and I think that's the thing we need to focus on. So I'll leave you there. Just so you know, there is the second annual national survey for getting IT right, how well we're doing IT in New Zealand. It's coming out in the coming weeks. And then go year on year comparison. How we did last year, how do we do this year? So that's coming out. So it's an interesting reading to be coming out. So I'll leave you with guess what the result is.
Last year's something we could guess.
Not good. That one is the yes. On to Rodney. So how do we meet? I think I've heard that somewhere. And
Can't remember.
so Rodney has he's come up through the consultancy route and into government. I've travelled overseas and has got himself onto the Better Business Case Standards Committee, and that is quite a big thing. So I don't want to downplay at all what you do. It's a big thing. It's a big thing globally. They've taken and worked with people like the British government, with the Australian government, places like this, and collated a lot of that stuff. One of the really awesome things, they've put all this data on the Wellington website for us all to use. It's all open and free and accessible to you. So here's another tool for you.
So just to build on what Scott was saying, Rodney Barber, Treasury official in Wellington, and also in my New Zealand Treasury capacity on the BBC Standards Board based out of London. So we're doing this in partnership with the Welsh Government and the English Government, but I'll come on to more about that shortly. The way we're branding this is Better Business Case sounds like a product, it sounds boring, it sounds dry and old, so we're branding it as Investing for Change. There's actually an outcome why we're applying BBC. What I'd like to do in 11 minutes is talk you through the background, so why we brought this to New Zealand, a bit of overview on the why we've done this, what BBC is, what's expected, who's involved, where to go for support, and then talk you through the 5-case model, which is the IP that a chap in the UK owns who's also on the BBC Standards Board with me, and then how we're applying that to the process in New Zealand. Then a little bit about early engagement to agree what's involved, and then some of the products, training, support that we'll be heading with us over the next 3 years across New Zealand. And then questions. So I promise I'll do this in 10 minutes, so hang on. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. The background on this was ministers back in 2007 said to the Treasury, we want more confidence that when we're investing in projects, particularly capital ones, that we not only have confidence in delivery, but also that the benefits will be achieved for New Zealand. So that was the message we got. So back then we thought, well, a better business case will inform a better decision and achieve a better outcome. That is the value proposition for the country. What we've also done, building on what some of Callum and Scott have mentioned, is we looked at the 6 key reasons for failed projects and programs. We put a bit of a positive spin on this, so that senior management are engaged from the get-go, there's a clear attachment with strategy, that stakeholders who are highly impacted by or highly influential in the success of the project or program are engaged. We engage the supply side early, and we're thinking the best value for money option, not just what's affordable in the short term. So half the audience were nodding their heads at that point. So what I've tried to do is build in some minimisation of risk by building in to BBC UK version to roll it out across New Zealand to build as much mitigation of that risk into this as possible. The why is, as a decision maker, you're going to get greater confidence to invest, and the benefits, there's a greater chance the benefits will be delivered and the risks managed. As a senior manager, if you get engaged early, there's a bit of a caveat on this one, that you'll have more confidence the business case will deliver you a decision, may not be the one you need, or want, but you will get a decision. For a business case developer, not a writer, a business case developer and the reviewer, so whoever's going to be providing the second opinion advice to the board or to cabinet or to council, there's early agreement on what type of business case is fit for purpose for the decision that's required from the decision maker or is being required by the decision maker. It can work both ways. And then with the supply side, they can be engaged early. What is a better business case? It is a combination of the business case methodology from the UK, the 5-case model, and as Scott alluded to before, we looked at Australia and found something called investment logic mapping. And like you do in New Zealand, you take the best of both things from the northern and southern hemisphere and try and adapt it for New Zealand so it's a lot more scalable. It is a thinking process, it is a stakeholder engagement process, it's not a writing process. It's fit for purpose, it's how much analysis is needed to secure that decision that we're all agreeing needs to be made by the decision maker. What's expected is very much dependent on the scale and risk of the program or project and clear expectations on what the decision is that's needed from the decision maker or required from the decision maker. And the heart of it is the 5-case model we'll come on to shortly. When it applies, mid-2010 it was mandated by Cabinet. It applies to all projects over 25 million whole of life or high risk, must apply BBC. In March last year it was mandated by the Christchurch Earthquake Recovery Authority as being the methodology to inform decisions on projects and programs across the recovery strategy that need a Crown investment in whole or part, not just capital. And that was endorsed by Cabinet. In May last year, New Zealand Transport Agency announced that they intended to launch in July this year an adapted version of this across the entire land transport program across the country. So all 78 local authorities need to, from then, start to be trained in this. And the Auckland Council and some of the government agencies in Auckland agreed to pilot it on some of the social programs. The implementation of the Auckland plan is aligned to the Better Public Service targets. So we're piloting it on early childhood outcomes, education, health and early attachment, and on Auckland Skills from a program perspective. But probably more importantly, it's just been seen as good practice across the country. We've got 2 SOEs that want to roll it out. We've got half a dozen district and city councils interested in rolling it out, and we've got government agencies, some of which have adopted it internally as what they do before they commission programs and projects. Who needs to be involved? There's 2 lenses to this. One is the program sponsor or project sponsor needs to engage with whoever's providing the second opinion advice to the decision maker and agree what type of business case is fit for purpose to get the decision that we need from the decision maker. The other lens is the stakeholders who need to be engaged during the development of the business case, who are highly influential and or highly impacted by the program or project, need to be involved, which is code for those people who are highly interested but not influential or impacted by it, can take up a whole lot of time, keep them out on the development of the business case, keep them informed through some sort of mass communication. 5-case model. This is really the kind of heart of BBC. There's only ever 5 questions that any governing body or decision maker wants the answers to. They're going to invest in a project or a program. What's the rationale? What's the case for change? Is it best value? Is it commercially viable? Is it affordable and doable? That's all they want to know. And therein lies the 5-case model. So the strategic case is what's the context, what's the strategy that this project or program fits within. And the case for change is what's the problem we're trying to fix here, and what's the real problem, and what's the real problem, and what's the evidence there is a problem. What are the benefits from a New Zealand context that this, if we solve these problems, we're going to achieve the benefits? And what are the smart investment objectives? Is this about increasing the effectiveness, efficiency, economy, re-procuring a service, or making a change in regulation? Why are we even looking at this program or project? What's the outcome we're looking for? The economic case is there's always a whole heap of options around scope, the service solution, the service delivery options, the implementation, the funding options. The economic case bottoms out short list of options before you do your detailed socio-economic analysis. And then the preferred option you're thinking about commercial viability. What's the capacity on the supply side? What's my procurement strategy? What are my risks around the contracts? What are my contractual arrangements going to look like? Then I work out whether I can afford it. So if it fits with strategy, if it's best value, if it's commercially viable, if it's affordable, I go to financial close and I hold the contracts and I deliver the project. Hopefully that's quite a few heads nodding. Hopefully making sense conceptually.
Because that has to get it all closed and then deliver the project. Delivering the project to get it work.
This will only get you the investment decision. I mean, the management case, that requires you to flesh out the project planning, the benefits realisation planning, the risk management planning, the change management planning, particularly if it's a large risk, large scale, high risk project or program. I'll very quickly show you how this backs on to the actual process itself. And this process is about engaging the stakeholders, particularly senior managers at the get-go, and also checking in with the decision maker as the thinking's happening before you start implementing the project. So for a large scale and or a high risk project is what's called a strategic assessment, which is only about the strategic case. How does this fit the strategy? What's the problem we're trying to fix? What are the benefits of fixing the problem? Check in with the decision maker, and that's the decision they make. Yes, we see it's fit with strategy and we need to do something about this. The next one is an indicative business case. The strategic case is what are the investment objectives that this project is trying to achieve. Economic case, how do we get from a long list to a short list of options? And then there's a light touch on the commercial case and alternative procurement. Financial case, indicative cost estimates for shortlisted options. Management case, a very light touch on organisational capability to move to the next stage. Where the detailed business case is about detailed socio-economic analysis on the shortlisted options. The commercial case is your procurement strategy, your contractual terms and conditions, the risks you're going to accept and the risks you want to transfer to the supply side. Financial case is all your detailed financial modelling around that preferred option. And the management case is some high-level project planning, benefits realisation planning. And that's where the decision maker then says, yes, that's best value for money option, release your RFP, if it's traditional procurement. In the state sector, if it's large scale and high risk, there's this to Cabinet, then that. And then Cabinet here typically delegate this to joint ministers, where it's only about the commercial case. You've released your RFP, you're now getting offers back from the market, you're making sure that you're picking the best value offer, still making sure that it's affordable. In the management cases, is specifying your project planning, benefits realisation, change management planning in detail. And that's the investment decision. If it's not large risk or high scale, there's a single stage as well, which is a lighter amount of effort. In the program space, there's a similar approach, but at program level, in the economic case, you're making big strategic trade-offs. So a DHB might be thinking about the balance between primary, secondary and tertiary healthcare. In the management case, these are your project tranches to deliver that best value option. So if you deliver those projects, which might come down here or might come straight down here, you'll achieve the outcome of the overall program. It has to be in the context of a strategy, a plan, and a conversation between the program sponsor or project sponsor to scope out, is this a program or a project? And this is a menu. This is which business case is fit for purpose to get the decision we all need. Very quickly, version 3 was released in August last year. There is a whole heap of products on the website. So for each type of business case, there's what we call a scoping document, which is used to negotiate what type of business case is fit for purpose. There's a guidance booklet for each type of business case. There's a template. There's the PowerPoint slides to help in the workshops. And there's an A3 one-pager to get your line of logic and your elevator pitch clear before you present it to your decision maker. There's also a whole lot of training and support on the workshop. So there's seminars, there's foundation course, there's practitioner courses and reviewers courses in 5 cities around the country every month. We've had a huge interest across the country, so we're now running an evaluation survey across 30 public sector organisations across the country to find out whether they think BBC is being effective and efficient and economical and meeting the standard, and where there's enough demand to potentially move to launch version 4 in August with some enhancements. 13 minutes.
very much. I should mention that in PMI I've done a lot of research, and some of the issues that come up over and over again, probably the three biggest issues that come up in the project management space are, first of all, accreditation. Organizations want accredited project managers, so PMI is working on that. Secondly, it's about processes, having good processes, scalable processes, which fits in with this very uniquely. And the third thing is doing the right projects. There's a survey done by IBM not long ago where they're looking at waste on projects and found that 52% of wastage was because organizations were doing the wrong project, non-strategically aligned pieces of work. So if you do a project and you do it really, really well, and it's the wrong project, you just wasted a lot of money, but you could have been spent on the right project. So that's why I see business cases as very important. I have to say initially, you probably like me, every year something new comes along. Investment logic might be this year, better business case this year. And I was kind of interested in it, it's a little bit interesting. And then when I discovered the project business case was mandatory for central government funding, it became fascinating. And when I looked into it, it's based on a lot of common sense. So thank you very much. I'm sure you've got a number of questions about this, so come on.
Rodney, the gateway aspect,
Yep.
touch on that around the assessment of those benefits.
Yeah, sure. You say so much in 13 minutes, yeah. What we liked about this, which we've changed slightly from the UK approach, was this exactly matches Gateway. For those who don't know, Gateway is a product in the UK, which is owned by the Cabinet Office, which is basically they send in a bunch of certified Gateway reviewers, about 80% the way through one of these deliverables, who are typically experts in the industry in which that project is part, and they test the thinking at about 80% completion of the business case. In New Zealand, they only give the outcome of that to the senior responsible owner, whereas in the UK that's now going to Cabinet and Treasury and all the rest of that. So if you're doing a strategic assessment, it's gate 0. If you're doing an indicative, it's 1, detail 2, implementation 3. There's a gate 4 just before go live, and there's a gate 5 benefits realisation. At each part of this initial scoping is working out what independent quality assurance needs to be. The decision maker needs a business case, but they also need some independent quality assurance from some independent function to say yes, it's fit for purpose. That could be Gateway, it could be IQA, it could be.
This is obviously very much focused on the benefits. But I think you need to be trying to manage those benefits. That's what you're trying to really share the benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, in the economic case of the detailed business case, you're actually doing you're working out a benefit cost ratio, but for each of the shortlisted options, but you're also identifying the intangible benefits that can't be monetised. So decision making could be faced with the best value option from an economic perspective could be option 4, but option 3 might deliver stronger intangible benefits, but that loses 20 million of economic value compared to option 4, and that's the decision maker's job to make a decision. It's just bringing transparency to the trade-offs. And then 12 months after go live, for any large-scale and high-risk project that's been through BBC, it needs to come back to Cabinet to report back against where the benefits are being delivered. And obviously for some projects that are multi-year, it might need to be longer. But the whole point of the management case is to articulate what your benefits realisation plan is going to be.
So from an implementation point of view, this is an introduction to the case if we're interested in picking out doing something with it, what's your advice about the next steps? How do we make it?
Come to the training. No, seriously, have a look at the website, and on the Monday there's a seminar, there's Tuesday's a foundation course, Wednesday, Thursday's practitioner course, module 1 and 2, and Friday's a reviewers course. and it'll be twice the price next year when it's launched globally. Yeah, here's your sales pitch.
In terms of your, I guess, exposure projects where this BBC methodology has been applied, do you have any metrics of your success failure rates compared to projects where the BBC has not been applied on say, a broader scale? So in other words, do you have any metrics or any quantitative analysis showing that those projects following this actually are more successful than those projects that do not follow this?
That's why I'm doing the National Effectiveness Review. Yeah, because when I go back to London in April, I want to be saying, New Zealand thinks this, we're getting better decisions, and it's not taking as long as, it's fit for purpose effort and engagement to meet a fit for purpose standard, and there's this much demand across New Zealand. And we need some enhancements to the New Zealand concise version until we're consistent with the global launch in October. We'd like some changes made to the global version. Yep.
There's a resource study called Armageddon, and during the launch of the rocket that they have to take to blow up the impending asteroid, the psychopath says, "You realise that this rocket was built by the lowest bidder." So my question is, how does the BBC mitigate the wrong word, but how does it manage, how does it look at value versus quality? Sometimes cheapest as well.
Well, that's the whole point. You don't focus on what you can afford, you focus on what's best value, then work out how you can afford it. And if you take, in each of these, in the strategic case and the economic case workshops, you're getting your key stakeholders who are highly influential in or highly impacted by the program or project. You're giving them visibility to your thinking.
So they're very aware of that question.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than just the lowest cost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to come to the foundation for it.
And thus it's a trade revision.
Well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't a public servant, whether you're local or central government, want the best use of taxpayer ratepayer money? And why wouldn't any corporate enterprise want to make sure that with the shareholders' funds and with the profits they're earning, they're doing the right thing for the organisation and the shareholders?
Now we hear the word best use of.
Or what, you know? Treasury is the economic and financial advisor to the Crown, not just financial. At the back?
Once green light is given on and implementations, you realize that something is not working. And is there an exit strategy in your model?
So you've had the implementation business case approved, you've got the money, you've signed the contracts, you're saying there's something else that happens before go live. Yeah, it's not a BBC issue. That's my whole point, is BBC takes you as far as the investment decision, so there's clear agreement between the sponsor and the decision maker, what the scope is, what the service, what the best value for money option and who's going to pay for it. But if that delivery risk is not part of BBC, BBC will not manage the project post-investment decision. You need good program and project management to deliver the project once you've got the money. Is that?
Does it, then say what you consider what type of delivery method you might use?
Absolutely, that's bottomed out in your economic case and your indicative business case. So my preferred option could be, in terms of the services I want to deliver, could be moderate scope in terms of services. This sort of solution could be integrated regionally, could be a national network. Service delivery, I could deliver it in-house or outsourced or a PPP. Implementation, phase by site or big bang. So we get one at the back here.
That's all. Sometimes you look at an individual project, it doesn't stack up on the business case, but in the context of a program or portfolio, there might be network benefits where the things kick in and it does start to make economic sense. Does the process recognise how does that where the program business case comes in?
Yeah, I've got the word portfolio up there, and that's because one large public sector organisation across the country has applied this to the entire portfolio of programs with a big P, portfolio, and used the economic case to make those big strategic trade-offs to then identify the tranches of projects in the management case. But that's where we haven't. BBC will help you implement the programs and projects. Sorry, BBC will help you make sure your programs and projects are tested and you get the investment decision. It won't inform strategy or policy. It starts with a balanced portfolio of programs and projects. Is that?
Can I just check? He's been very patient.
You mentioned earlier that Australia have the investment logic mapping approach, and that has been used to inform the adaptation of the BBC in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that NZTA is looking to adopt BBC's approach. Is that
adapt? Yeah.
Adapt, yeah. That's really sort of what I was interested in. Is what adaptations that they make to BBC? Are they bringing in ILM to their approach as well?
The only part of ILM that's built into version 3 BBC is the problem and benefits workshop in a strategic case. ILM then heads in a slightly different direction to BBC. But I am doing some work with Victoria to see if we can't integrate the two over time, both in terms of process and capability integration.
So NZTA are heading in this direction?
Yep. But we're working with Auckland Council and NZTA to try and get a version that we release in August that's fit for purpose for New Zealand. And a lot of this is about language. Yeah. Yeah, well, PPPs are typically, you can flag them up here as a potential, but they typically get looked at in here as a service delivery mechanism.
So it's a new process taking small problems.
Sorry, say again?
It's a new process taking small problems that have been around for a long time. The makers or people who mandated this process, has there been any sort of thoughts by those guys before the publishers about what the weaknesses could potentially be in these processes?
This has been around for 25 years in the UK.
Oh, is it?
So we have leveraged off a lot of their lessons learned. To be completely open with you, the whole reason we've targeted the training is getting smart investment objectives in here and how you identify a range of options to get to a short list. That's I'm not doing a sales job here. That's Practitioner Course Module 1. Practitioner Course Module 2 is how you do your detailed socioeconomic analysis in here and how you think about your contractual arrangements and what risks you're going to retain and which you're trying to negotiate.
So you're going to refer to that and what I want to say because sometimes it's just like a dog wagging its tail and it wags it this way and you're responding, the strategy change the way it appears.
Oh, look, you need to come to the foundation course. Look, no, seriously, in the strategic case here, you do revisit. I mean, between that decision here and starting work on this, there could have been an election, there could have been some New Zealand environmental change. So you do revisit. It's just a test.
The last issue is, do you try and make time down these things? Because these things go on for a long time and that can be because of the changes in people from the start, you make a strategic decision and everything else right through to the people that are now listening to the process, not only change direction, but anyone who knew about it through the early stages 18 months ago, 1 year.
You've just sold the advantage of having a business case, yeah? And having it approved by the decision maker, so everyone's clear. So if people do change, we go back to the indicative business case and we know what we're doing.
So the decision maker changes his mind at the start.
Oh, look, and decision makers can change their minds, absolutely. But they just need to know what the implications are, not just on the project, but the wider portfolio.
Just one quick one. Just leading a little off if you get to the benefits realisation, it's pretty some organisation is hugely important. Is there an occasion in this process where benefits realisation sets an alarm bells up and there's actually has to be a change? Or do you see that as that's a project implementation not a business case?
No, good point. I mean, that's why I've built this benefits in here. So what are the problems we're trying to fix? And there's 3 or 4 of them. You know, it's just not that. It's hard to get in the workshop to that point because everyone comes potentially from different organisations with their organisational strategy context, which is fair enough for the organisation, but if you're trying to improve outcomes across a sector or a region, you need people to come together. Which is why we want to identify benefits early, because that's used to start looking at, to get to your short list of options. So there's a cost, benefit, risk kind of thread going through right through there. When you're doing your detailed socioeconomic analysis, it's based on the benefits. You know? So there's a thread all the way through, and then when you get to benefits realisation plan in here, who's accountable for delivering that benefit in that year? And the chief executive signs off the business case, and it literally goes to the decision maker. So he or she is responsible for delivering the benefits and managing the risks. It's getting that whole accountability and governance clear right up front. It will take a long time if the stakeholders don't do the thinking together. If someone uses this to write a business case, it will fail. It's not a writing process, it's a thinking stakeholder engagement process. There's a lot of work goes in early here. Who are the stakeholders we need to bring to the table to really have quite a robust discussion about what the problem is we're trying to fix? And that's why for large scale and high risk projects, the Treasury requirement is you have an accredited ILM facilitator. Because you've got to have an iron fist and a velvet glove to get a whole bunch of senior managers from different organisations together to bottom out what the real problem is we're trying to fix.
I think that's the key point, because we have an ILM workshop on one of my projects, and one of the key factors trying to make it succeed is that you have to have decision makers at the appropriate level within the organisation, otherwise you're wasting time.
Absolutely. But let's flesh that out early. And the other challenge is exactly what's the decision we're after.
Well, for us, it's the bottom line implication. Do we have a problem with these simple stuff? One is a problem on necessarily.
That's right.
So this is obviously built with large scale investment, large scale projects in mind. Have you given any thought or any assessment on how well it scales down, and at what point it just becomes necessarily for the project too small, or any type of dives there?
Yeah, absolutely. When we launched this in Christchurch in March, the NGO said, look, we just need $500,000 to keep ourselves going for the next couple of years. So what we developed was a single stage light. But we said, come to the training and just fill in the 3-page template. Keep it simple. It's the 5-case model, it's the thinking. Yeah. So we've tried, we've pushed the boundaries as much as we can without, and you get, I mean, in the scoping here, you could potentially negotiate out of doing some parts of the business case as well. So long as who's putting the decision up, who's the sponsor putting up the decision, so putting up the business case to the decision maker, so whoever's providing that second opinion advice, the sooner they agree on the level of effort and engagement going into this, you know, there's not going to be any embarrassment when it gets to the decision maker. So there's a whole relationship management component to this too.
Just on that one, which I guess is the next one, is in your experience, when we introduced a whole lot of new techniques, a whole lot of new languages, and exposing people to it, in your experience, have you found that organisations are becoming a bit more rapid as they become more familiar with the questions they need to answer?
Absolutely. I mean, this has only been around for 2.5 years. There was nothing that I could find in Australasia, apart from the ILM process, coming back to your question before, that existed. So we had to go to the Northern Hemisphere, and we found UK and Canada, but we picked UK.
Information actually by setting it all out and saying, right, without realising it, you actually discover a lot of missing pieces of information and certainly a piece of the EU organisation.
And that's one of the things that we found is that there's actually quite a lot of to fill the gap, information gap before we actually do the exercise.
Yeah, the first thing this will do is test strategy. It won't develop or inform the strategy, it will test it.
Thank you very much.
Can I just one? Here's why I got motivated about this and joining with both PMI and Rodney. Here's a tool for you guys, right? You're going to go, yeah, that's a tool. But again, I think one of the key problems us as project managers have is that the powers above us are always putting unfair pressure on us. And here's a tool, and you may even call it a common language, to go, hang on, here's yet another piece of weight to say, you're wrong, we're right. I'm being a bit frank. That's what happens, right? Your money gets squeezed, your time gets squeezed, your scope gets squeezed. Here is a mechanism to go back and go, no, you're going to do it right. You're not going to do a NO. So, just wanted to throw that in because I think that, we've got to build this tool set. You've got to get that's one piece. Here's another piece. So they can have a full toolbox and then do it really well. And that's what I like.
Yeah, and I was hearing similar things, so thanks Scott. I mean, it is about asking the right questions up front, making sure you get the right participants, and all of that, and I'm hoping that is a critical area. And then asking the right questions as we go through. We're going to get rid of this completely, because it's going to reduce the risk. And anything that we can do to reduce the risk and make sure that we make informed decisions which are important and approved and it's going to increase the likelihood of success in projects, which is what we're all here to do. So, on behalf of Project Management Institute of New Zealand, I'd like to thank Rodney for his time coming to Auckland today. So please,
Which means to clear.
Just a couple of things. Obviously, the next PMI meeting is on the 21st of March. Is it a Wednesday? 20th. Get that? 20th of March. That's the end of the meeting. So 20th of March. And details about that will be coming forward. Also, if you could please take the badges off when you leave and drop them in the box on the outside, that would be terrific. And the PMI members and that sort of can identify you eligible for PDUs and so on. So please don't be Thank you very much.